Welcome back to the podcast. Today we have Brandon Rogers on the podcast. So principal and founder at 2R Consulting Group, fractional CFO, financial linguist, advocate of business growth, and servant leader. At least that's what your LinkedIn says.
I'm gonna just assume my LinkedIn is representing me 100%, Brandon. So we're gonna go with that.
Okay, that's perfect. Yeah, I kind of assumed the same thing at the same time. So I want to kick this off with, I think the most important question that I could have come up with was scouring your online presence. So did your parents understand the power and responsibility they bestowed upon you by naming you Brandon?
I mean, clearly there was some sort of reverb with like throwing out awesome authority into the universe circa 1980s, and that's what it was a thing in the 80s. Yeah, I'm with you, buddy.
It was. It must have been a thing.
It
must have been a lot of power in the 80s, which we all know there was.
That's truth. They were breeding them then. That's how it works.
A couple years ago, they tried to bring us down, but they couldn't bring us down.
True story. I like it.
Huh. At least it could be worse. We could be Karens. So
it's true, right? Or Heather. My twin sister, incidentally, is named Heather. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, Brandon and Heather. Once the 90210 came out, it was just so bad. I couldn't escape it.
So good, but so bad. All right, down to some semi-seriousness. Can you give me your career in like an elevator 2-minute pitch? Like what's your whole story in 2 minutes?
Sure. Graduated school, started working for JP Morgan, did derivative analysis, which at the time I had no idea what that was. Spent my time in New York City, got transplanted, and actually backup. City was great. Loved the work there, but the missus, now my wife, got me to move to Central PA. It's the only reason I ended up in here, and did the corporate route. Found that leadership wasn't something to which we aspire, but something we end up becoming in the road around, and that's been a really cool thing for me. And have been a serial entrepreneur since. So did a lot of the corporate development into leadership roles in big Fortune 100, 500 companies, and then realized when I turned 40 that there must be something I could do to control it better. So hence 2R's birth.
Awesome. So you said leadership isn't something we sought after. I believe you said it just happens.
We happen around it as we're working around life. So I say this often, people preach about it, they write about it, and these are all good things. But for me, leadership was the product of all the things I didn't do well. And then the place at which I arrived that said, hey, you're now aware and cognizant of all those things. And they start to become, they grow. And so, yeah, leadership sort of starts with this, sort of stem of humility and appreciation, or this grandiose gratitude for the things around you, and then you stay there. And then as you grow, you keep yourself rooted here. And I have, a spiritual director I've had for 3 years since I launched this organization that I see 2-3 times a week. And that is probably how I see leadership in a nutshell, as staying rooted in recognizing that I'm just a small thing that gets influenced sometimes on a big scale.
Did work force you into that path, reading or just coaching, betterment? What really kicked that off?
Yeah. So, man, I don't want to go dark on this, but death did. So my grandmother, who was very much like my mother for the better part of 3 decades, passed. And it was one of those conversations where I had just turned 40, where she's like, you've got all of these degrees, you spent all this time in corporate America. What do you want to say when you're my age, your life was about? And it was really deep. I know it happened in late January 22. I probably spent 2 weeks just sitting in that thought. And then, goodness, it was like 24 hours later, I put a plan together. 2 weeks later, I had my first partner, and bam, just grew. And that's what we've been doing ever since. So, yeah, I mean, I think all good things are born out of either just a cathartic, hard moment, but a really good moment, or pain. And I think for me, it was sort of the juxtaposition of those two things.
Are you a reader?
I am a reader. I'm probably more a writer than I am a
Okay.
reader. Yeah.
The
So
reason I say that is because we're reading Seven Habits. We just finished Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, and Begin with the End in Mind simply just came out when you just said that, right?
yeah.
What do you want people to say about you in your funeral? Like if you pick your pockets of people.
Yeah. I honestly it's a very simple, maybe trite, doesn't make it any less true or visceral. I want people to say when he was around, I felt much better about X, Y, or Z, whatever that is, just their contribution to the world, to their spouse, to their children, to their parents, what have you, just felt illuminated. It's one of the reasons why this is a people first thing, and even how we got connected. It's always about what people are saying about you when you're not in the room. And I think maybe that's the epitome. Maybe it's what, there it is. I just fell on it. This is what happens. It's what he made me feel when he wasn't in the room.
Yeah, and at your funeral, you're still in the room.
I know, right? Just watching you just can't hear me. Yeah, no, that's where I am. It's a good way of saying it. Actually, I'll take that.
Yeah, that was good. Wow, that was a banger start. The financial linguist approach. So you describe yourself as a financial linguist. What does that mean, and how do you translate financial complexity into actionable insight for businesses?
Yeah, I'll just make it real simple. I kind of reverse engineered my life and business. Derivative finance is very, very specific. It's like financial engineering. And I immediately after I did my degrees undergrad, went into the master's in English. And I realized how much I love the written word and I love to write. And I recognized through stories and humor, huge on the humor side. And my wife is a therapist. So I know she has her own business. I'm constantly on the couch, run with that. But that being said, I would tell you, financial linguistics is just a really pretty way of saying that we storytell to tell the story of your financial health, your trajectory. And I just understand coding. I did it when I was growing into my career, and finance always made sense to me, like speaking, to several different people about several different topics makes sense to you. And I come in and I just never really had to think about it. Finance was just like the heartbeat, and I could always understand where the heartbeat was. But the storytelling was imperative to people who don't hear the heartbeat or can't sense it. So I figured out how to draw pictures and bridges to get them there. So that's where we are.
Dang.
A lot to take in there.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, I don't think I would never thought of finance that way. And I remember when I started in my role here, I knew nothing about business finance. And that was probably one of the harder. I knew everything about project performance finance, but taking that up to the next level to the company side of things, I was like, what are these words? And why don't they match what I learned for 10 years?
It's funny. I've developed a curriculum actually that sort of boils it all down into about 24 hours of just like you soak it in. And it's basically, I taught at the college level for like 5 years. And I recognize if you're a 400 level student in investment finance or a freshman in personal finance, it was all just about drawing, connections. And so business, none of this, anybody says that it's a rocket, it's rocket science. I promise you it's not rocket science. And so I realized the way that someone might teach you how to play piano or the way they might teach you how to ride a bike was no different than finance. So one day I just started telling the story, and I've kind of picked it up as I've gone, and people just sort of jive with the approach. And it's always about the approach. So you'll hear me say this often, and anyone with whom I work will say the same. Just it's like ingrained. You have to be kind and you have to work hard. And if you're those two things when we start, I will make sure you're educated and you understand it so much so that you can apply it. And that's been sort of the mantra that's kept us going.
That's brilliant. So simple. Why is humor important to you?
So, goodness, we get deep again. I don't think there's a movie you could come up with since 1985 that I couldn't tell you a date or actors' names from which that movie was born. Lines in it. The reason I say that is not to boast, but to communicate that every one of those movies had lines and humor. So our brains are wired to connect. And you'll hear this actually if you're in China. They've been doing this for 50 years. They associate smell and sound to learning, so that your neural pathways have different angles and senses through which the learning process can happen. So for me, humor is always that place where it doesn't matter if it's one meeting or 100, I'll drop a line from a movie in the early 90s or whatever. And honestly, everyone always says, I remember that talk because, and they lead with that. And that, again, is just it's a scientific method. It was a process of trial and error. And I realized the one common denominator was just making people laugh. So,
are you my spirit animal?
Might be, right? But this is, I have 2 daughters and my wife, 16 years. My 2 daughters just turned 12 yesterday, and then the other one's turning 11 in a month. And they're encumbered by all of the things that I require of them. You've got to be straight A's. You've got to read. But it's always coupled with, but we have to laugh at each other all the time. And those laughing moments reinforce the learning habits. So it's probably just being a lifetime learner, but it's been good.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, humor is like, when I did there's 100 whatever words, and I had to figure out the values for me as a person, and humor kept coming to the top of that list.
Yeah.
And I realized that one's up there, and then I'm just putting in the other one as filling potential, because there's nothing more I love than like connecting people, helping them through something, educating myself to the next generation, whatever that looks like. It's finding, like, there's no greater gift than being like, you have more than what you're giving. It should be more over here, and then just giving them tools to watch it just blossom.
Well, here's the other thing. I love that. I think you're spot on. And that's it's wonderful when you find people that are into what they do, because I've learned, and again, my wife's phenomenal. I surround myself with really great people, keep me straight. But I'll tell you, they'll tell you, I'm not really sure how he does it. And I'll tell you, I always say back to them, if you could see what I see from where I'm sitting, you'd understand how I do it. It's always, but I always find, and this shifted for me, especially since I was 40, I'm going to spend every day just enjoying the process. And you can say it a lot. You can try to mean that, but you have to mean it for it to take root. And then you become the person that people want to be around. And when you're not in the room, they feel the presence gone. And for me, learning has been much about increasing levity and reducing stress. I have a whole TED Talk series on stress and finance, finding the juxtaposition between those two things and learning how to embrace them at the same time. When you reduce stress through humor, the learning happens in the background. And again, there's probably medical communication that says he's right, but I'm not that interested. I just know that it works, so I keep working on it.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Love that. Are you a fan of the Nard dog?
I mean, if you're asking me if I've watched 12 times over The Office, I would say yes. And if Andy Bernard is in some ways him, Michael Scott, and Jim all working together into one human being, I would say yes.
Okay.
I'm a fan.
You know why I bridged that question, correct?
Run it to me, pretend I don't.
Because of where you went to school.
I get it.
Just making sure.
I get it. I get the it's funny. I loved school. I loved my undergrad degrees. I love all my grad degrees. It's when when we went to school, that mattered. Where you went. And goodness, did I realize how much it didn't matter. Once you got into life, I loved, Cornell's a great school. It was a beautiful campus, but I'll tell you, man, being up to it, I have a couple businesses. I have a clothing apparel company and a golf company, like just serial entrepreneur I mentioned. They all relate to finance, but I'll tell you what, man, they've been wonderful teachers to me, just really good teachers. And I think those schools are always looking for the serial entrepreneurs to tell us how you did it. So it's just funny, the circuitous nature of higher education, because essentially you go there to leave, to basically break all the rules and standards they told you to apply, to break out on your own. And then they actually come back and say, hey, tell us how you did it. I think it's funny. But yeah, the Nard dog, also a good company.
So it's interesting you say that like it matters where you go, because I don't think I ever took that approach. I never even thought about it. I went more probably to play soccer in college than anything. And then I was going to be an eye doctor. So obviously that worked out really well for me. Um,
There
I
you go.
shadowed for a summer and realized that I wasn't that cool with the general public.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Back that up. And yeah, I think, and kind of like you're saying that I don't understand entrepreneurs completely. I'm talking to enough of them and I'm starting to wrap, because I'm not that mind. I believe a master manager by nature, in the sense of like creating something from nothing, like scares the shit out of me.
I like the
So
honesty, by the way. I
what?
like it. I love the honesty. I love it.
It's what I'm good at, what I'm not good at. But it's so interesting when you say about bucking the system, because like I can relate to that. Like you wearing a suit every day like makes me want to vomit. Like I could never be in that space. I got yelled at for wearing a hat at the Lancaster Country Club at lunch. Like I was pissed off because I looked at the wall and there was nothing but old white people. Like the whole thing
I
bothered me.
I get it. And let me tell you, like I spent a decade dressing in suits and ties. I mean, I've played the game and I've done it. Part of why I look like Zuckerberg on most of our conversations is because when I watched that movie, I thought to myself, he gets it. And if I showed you my feet right now, you'd see a pair of rainbow sandals, because this is exactly who I am. If you go back far enough, it wasn't last year, it was the year before. All my partners got a branded pair of rainbow sandals that had my logo 2R on it. And that was because every time I went in there, I had a pair of sandals on. It didn't matter if I had a suit jacket on, I had jeans and sandals. You have to, I mean, people are not hiring me for my looks, I promise you. They're hiring me because of the way that I make them feel when we're in the room. And so I always felt like if I was going to do that well, I've got to be really into my person and who I am. And part of who I am has been, even my wife was saying the other day, you're walking outside with no shoes on. Just, I was like, this is what it is. And I said, there's something to be said for being comfortable and also letting people, you talk about buck the system. I just never did well in between the lines. We talked about this, even in grade school, color inside the lines. I remember as a little kid, 6, 7 years old, I always took brick red was my favorite color. I always took brick red, and whatever picture we had, I'd always hard outline it, right? So that it was a really pretty hard color around the picture, whatever that was. And then I'd fill it in just enough that it would go outside the lines. Because for me and my eyesight, it always looked cooler to have like a little halo glow. And there was, you stayed between the lines. And I'm like, even at that age, 6, 7 years old, I knew this was just not my path. And let me be honest with you, Brandon, it's been hard. There have been just,
Especially what you chose.
yeah, well, I mean, not necessarily mentally. I'm grateful that the math always made sense.
Yeah.
Everything emotionally hard. Yeah, they spent 15 years telling me all the things I shouldn't be, or all the ways I should be acting. And I thought to myself, like, we spend the first 10 years of our lives being told not to do that. And then we spend the remainder of our life trying to fit into a mold. And there's 8 billion plus people on this planet. I can't imagine any one of them are the same. And so as I think about even what 2R is, it's an extension of being able to figure out how to align on ideas and thoughts to take business further, but to recognize that you're very different in the approach and, sometimes the outcomes.
Yeah, I love that. That's the whole approach for my whole stay weird thing. Like I just want people to realize like it's just do whatever makes you happy.
Do you have children? I have to ask you.
I have a stepdaughter. Yes, she's 24.
Okay. So my daughter, Henley, she's going to be 11 in a month. You said stay weird. I said something to her about 4 years ago. She's beautiful, by the way, but has glasses and a little bit like her dad. He's a little off, just find random things. And I said to her, she's kids love her. She said to me, she's probably 6 years old, first grade or kindergarten, something about she not being like this, and I remember telling her, I wish my parents had told me this too. Embrace it now, babe. If you are you, now early on, being you truly when you're in your 20s, when it matters, and 30s, and it will be easier, and you'll be, so the stay weird thing, if we're honest, Brandon, every one of us are weird. It's just how honest are we with each other when we're talking about it.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, and I think there's real power, like you just said. I think there's real power in that because the authenticity piece comes through and people yearn for it.
Yeah. It's authenticity. We go back down to the levity. The cortisol levels just drop. When you just feel like you're disarmed and diffused, like there's nothing that you've got to worry about, you just show up. Things flow. They just do. Intelligence flows. EQ, IQ find its highest, it's incredible. And that's one of the reasons why, it's a mix between, I don't mind saying this, Boys to Men, circa 1992, the two albums, and the real Slim Shady. Between, it vacillates. It's got to go between the both. But, man, I'll drop a little on bended knee on one end and a little bit, please stand up on the, you got to have both. But I'll do that when I write. I'll do that when I'm learning or reading or whatever. And man, that's the whole approach. That's us being fully who we are. And everybody's got all those different dimensions.
Yeah, it's almost like a runner's high, but
right?
But when
that's
you're trying to,
that's a way of saying it.
Like you're not
or
sure whatever.
Why.
Yeah, it's like a perfect vibe that you're hitting. Like I had it at one of those speech. I did a speech at a keynote, not a keynote. It was not that serious. At Manufacturing Association for like 15 minutes, but it was around culture and personal branding. And like, I just was nervous, walked up, told the audience I was nervous straight up, and then just went, right? And then threw in a couple anecdote notes, like got a couple laughs, and then you start feeling it, right? And then you're right. Like I didn't even have to think. No. It was just rolling.
There's two, you'll know both these movies. There are two movies I knew it was going to bubble up. I always make sure it's not scripted because I like it bubbling up. There are two movies from which I'll draw these that you'll get right away, Brandon. So Old School, you remember that movie with, freaking
Blue.
Reba Blue. So Will Ferrell was debating at the end when they were trying to keep their certification as a fraternity, and he debated Jim Carville, and he said he just went and blacked out, went blah, 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 blah. He goes, dude, I don't know what happened. I blacked out and everything go okay. He's like, that was money. He did that, and I think Bradley Cooper, circa 2009, Limitless, when he said, all these things would just bubble up and they were accessible. They say everyone has an eidetic memory. I don't know if you knew that, but if you read about it, they'll tell you. Because everybody learns through pictures. Some of them just retain longer than others, or they're higher or quicker to recall. But I think about those two things, and I think, man, when you're on that runner's high, or when you're in your vibe, where you're feeling it, you're connected with people that make you comfortable in a conversation just like this, never seeing your face and immediately like into the conversation. All those, you stop trying at that minute. You just get into the conversation, and no one's looking to be anything other than who they are. And then from that comes a conversation, and you can see when that happens. You can watch it visibly just perk. It's awesome.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. I get that a lot when I feel like I'm performing to make people laugh, like if it's with family or whatever, and then you get like that first one, and then it just starts like, it comes up so fast that I'm just like hitting things, right? And then I'm like, shit, too far. Yep. Pull that one back.
Yep. Yeah. We have a group of guys. I've known my best friend for 32 years. He's a cardiologist, ironically, but we have this group text I can literally send to you right now, or show it to you. It is every day. Some of the dump. My wife says this. You guys, we spend 5 days together every year for
right. You guys play tag.
July. What's that?
Do you play tag?
Well, that would be dope, and I love that movie. That would be great. But we do cornhole. We listen to a lot of Gin Blossoms and Hootie. This happens, right? I just keep dropping these things down. A lot of that, a lot of cornhole, and then we watch. We literally, all of us. It's a process. We grab 6 DVDs or watch now from the Apple TV, pick them, and then we start removing away movies until we land on one. And we do this for like 3 days. My one buddy's got a theater in his house, and that's all we did. We cornhole, bunch of nachos, freaking music while we're playing cornhole, and movies. And my wife says, "I don't see you dumber than you are," and she uses that word like very clinically. Like, I'm not talking about regressed. You're dumb. Okay. I'm not sure how to feel about that, but I'm like owning it. It's just like, we're 10 years in now. I'm fine with it. But
Oh,
this thing, Brandon, there's 4 guys from all over the world. Like, for all of us, it's very different perspectives. But man, that dose of 96 hours of stupid is probably the best thing for my mind the whole year. Vacations included. That is probably the best thing for us, because there's something chemically that happens where everything just moves to the side. All of the gravity of all the work you're doing, trying to perform, trying to do these things, and you just exist. And I think most of the time in my work, that's how I feel. And part of the teaching is to get other people to feel that as well. And some of that's just, as you know, in the servant part of servant leadership, it's just being there and listening.
I'm not sure I understand where we're totally off questions now, but it's
That's
cool.
Okay. Just run it.
I'm not sure I understand where the fad of servant leadership came from.
Yeah, I could probably give you an educated guess. I think a lot of people felt like the culture of fear leadership needed to be flipped. And there's such a bad stigma between hierarchy and getting people to follow you, that they came up with a myriad of different, euphemisms or analogies, but then they laid it on this catchphrase of servant leadership.
Yeah.
And, for me, it is hard to show up and feel like I have to dance. I'm not good at it. But when you build your own thing, you don't have to. And so servant leadership stops becoming, it stops becoming something you have to say. You just start. And then, yeah.
I think that's where my head's at. Like, it's almost the phrase that everyone uses now.
It is.
And it never, honestly, those 2 words almost, I'm not sure they've ever come out of my mouth, but it's because I didn't relate it to that. Like that, I guess maybe I just didn't have really shitty bosses, so I didn't have to go through that. You know what I mean? Like, It was like,
and I had plenty. So
we made it to the promised land, like one of those things. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe that's
again, I don't know who's going to see this. One person sees this and gets a little bit inspired, or someone just gets a laugh or two. Awesome. But I will say, for those that might tune into the concept of like servant leadership, you shouldn't say it. I mean, at the end of the day, and I see it a lot, I shouldn't say it. One of the things I've learned also is in this process of life is not judging. Everybody's got different angles, so I don't want to judge.
Everybody's got baggage. That's right.
Yeah, it's just, life's easier. But when you have to talk about the things you want to be, likely you're not being them fully. It's only when you're in it. And I do this even when I'm, sitting down with a partner. It's only when I'm sitting down there trying to figure it out and thinking through what it serving. Does the leadership even come? It's just the first word. Does the leadership even come in? So when you're serving people and they're listening, you're leading. You don't have to articulate those 2 things. And I think, the best proxy for how we do with our business is to talk to one of the people on my team, and ask them, what is it like to be here? What is it like to feel? What does it feel like? And they'll tell you.
It's like my favorite question. It's so interesting you say that, because I wrote a LinkedIn post, it was probably last year. And I don't know if it went over well, but essentially it was, if you have to tell people you have an open door policy, you don't have an open door policy.
True. It's so true. And there's all those things too about approachability and, bosses. But at the end of the day, someone was talking about this with one of my partners. They're talking about hierarchy. You got to follow the chain of command. And
I hate the chain of command.
It's just funny because it's so crude to think of it like this, but I always think of a beehive. No one goes and says, "Are you the queen? Hey, what should I be?" Or an ant farm. yo, bro, you got these? Because I got to carry this over here. You got me? Like, they just are. And I think about how we connect. I mean, I go to the gym. This is a fun fact for you. I had a concussion. I got concussed on the 18th of December. Stupid white or black ice, but just bit it.
Oh,
Yeah, woke up in the ICU. My wife staring me down with one of my. I know it's bad news. It was right before Christmas. My
did she say
daughter,
another dumb moment?
yeah, it was a dumb moment. My wife was sitting at the foot of the bed, and she's like, "I'm like, I'm fine. But anyways, 6 days later, up until that point, I had spent 152 straight days in the gym, and since 6 days after that incident, I've been in the gym. The reason I say that is because everybody's got this barometer or way to stay where they are. I have found that the best version of myself starts with these kinds of routines. So as much as I love being here talking with you, this is fun for me, but I'm in bed and asleep by 9:15. I'm awake at 5:15 and I'm running by 6 a.m. and lifting at 7. Like it's so militant that my wife's like, hey, give me a treadmill so I can run at home and we're good. But those kinds of things, I think, like, how do we continue to be who we are? When I wake up and I think, is this going to be a good day? I always ask myself, how am I starting? And this routine of the gym is the same as checking in with people. It's the same thing. I had this conversation with my wife. We have some life with family, and some of them they don't check in and some they do. But I think about the people that work at 2R, and I check in and say, dude, how are you doing? Or my EA, Alyssa, she's phenomenal. Incidentally, the only reason I'm able to operate well, she checks in with me, but I'll sometimes check in with her and just say, how are you? And it's amazing how those those 3 little words just take off, because it just says you care, you're interested, you're paying attention. I find that I'm digressing with you, Brandon. This is very easy to just chat, but these are the things, man, that I think we miss, and I wish we spent a little bit more time on.
What would you say to people who that's not normal?
Receiving that question or asking it?
Asking.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean,
I don't think that's normal for me.
To ask someone how they are, I'll change the lens a little bit for you. You feel best, at least how I've inferred from our conversation, some of the things you've said explicitly, when people are in their element, right? Sometimes it is the explicit ask of ensuring they're in their element to figure it out. Now, you may be able to cultivate that and orchestrate it because of your gifting. Clearly, that's true. You get people to open up. Look at me, word vomit, man, word vomit. But some people, it's a rhythm of things. Some teams that you build habits just become a rhythm. And so the advice for them is, and when you're sitting down feeling like you're at your game, you're at your top game, whatever that is, whether you're an introvert, extrovert, whether it's sports, whatever it is, ask yourself, how did I get here? And you're going to feel one thing. I guarantee you feel it. I feel it. And the person that's listening to this is feeling it. They feel grateful. That for a moment, they feel they're content and there's not anything else in that moment that they would want. The second they feel that, I promise you, this is the impulse of every person listening to this and you want to share it. You want someone else to experience what you're experiencing. That's the advice I give to the person who doesn't typically ask, how are you? Maybe spend some time introspectively saying, I feel full. I want someone else to feel what I'm feeling in a good way. And then tease it out. It doesn't have to be questions, but it could be a rhythm. But I do it sometimes when I walk through the gym and just say hello. Sometimes it's a, tap on the shoulder. Sometimes it's a smile, but everybody's looking for something like that to connect. And sometimes you change the course trajectory for someone with that, 5-second convo, or even I did this at dinner the other night, even asking a server that I've seen a few times how her 7-year-old was. She's like, you knew about my 7-year-old. I said, yeah, you talked about it last time we were here. But those little things, man, people are in this environment, especially, we forget those things, and it goes a long way.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think the Dale Carnegie book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, changed my mindset on that. What's interesting is what you said there about you feel something and you want to share it. Like, that's why I started our company book club, because I realized when I read Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, I was like, holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this just changed my life. This couple of pages, like, are there other people that need this?
It's awesome. Like, it's so awesome.
And then just, turned into small book club, small, and then huge. And we went with like 30 people. And it's life-changing. And all was because of that, because I wanted to share that experience.
And I do that with the gym. I like when people come out and work out, but I do it more often than not. If you ask my wife or anybody really close to me how I talk, it's through movies. I mean, I could tell you a whole story about my life through a movie, subsets. And my favorite movie, my daughters still want to watch, they're not old enough yet, is The Shawshank Redemption. Mm-hmm. And it is probably the most complete pictorial of humanity, the condition of human, the good, the bad, the tough. And I think about those things. I'm like, that music, I'll share those things. I'll share those experiences. I've got, going to DMB here in June for the 400th time. I just, if you know Switchfoot, but I just going to see Switchfoot again on Thursday, another great group. So Eminem, I mean, I've seen Coldplay. If you walk the gamut of artists, small to big, but that's how I share. I actually had a concert I hosted last September for one of my favorite artists. Came up from Nashville and had 100 people, and that's what we did for a night. It was no cost, no nothing, just show up. And being able to watch people experience that, it's at the end of the day, if we're not doing that, what are we doing? But I think about that's how awesome that is.
Yeah, I don't get music. It doesn't make me really feel like I probably listen to music. It's so funny because my wife and I have this conversation all the time. She's just, I listen to it probably like 3 times a year. Like,
really?
Like, I'm in a mood.
Books are yours.
Yeah. What's up?
Books are your thing then? Like,
no, I don't like reading.
What is?
Video games.
Oh, so tell me, like, use a video. So what are you into on the video games?
It depends. It goes through spurts. Like right now I'm really into single player stories. Like I'm really my Sundays are usually down doing whatever I need, completely forgetting life and just living someone else's life. You know what I mean? And, but I'm a big like podcast person. Like I'll listen to a lot of stuff that way. I always have headphones in, but it's usually never music, which I find interesting. But my parents also weren't really into music. So maybe
it could be that. And I'll tell you too, the vibe you give off, Brandon, you want to, if I may, like if I'm going to I'm sure you've watched this, Ted Lasso. Bro, if I could tell you who I'm watching right now, just chat with me, I feel like you're like the not on Apple TV version of Ted Lasso.
So, you hear that, Apple?
Yeah. Apple, you want to recast Jason Sudeikis.
Season 5.
But I think about that story he tells about being curious, Walt Whitman. And this is your whole thing, man. So if it's in a video game on Sunday's dope, but you're doing what you should be doing on the podcast. If your whole purpose is just to get other people to talk through curiosity and interest, you're nailing it, man.
Thank you. Yeah, all it is passions. I love talking to people about their passions. And so when I started this, it was because I saw a LinkedIn post that said, "Are you a construction executive? Do you want more customers and more employees? Then you should probably start a podcast." So that's exactly what I did. I said, "Oh, okay."
Inspiration written right down, man. There it is.
Infomercials get me every time, so don't even put them on. So I had all the equipment because I do some YouTube stuff, and I was like, all right, well, I'll try it. And then it really turned into like, man, I had people on talking about Disney. I've had people on talking about whatever, sprint car racing, a guy from work. And so I never wanted to run out of guests until I wanted to run out of guests. So it's just whatever.
It's awesome too. I love that you've taken in business owners and entrepreneurs because, some of them probably most interesting people are the ones, and you talk about you maybe not being a big entrepreneur, you're trying to understand that psyche. Let me tell you one thing that all entrepreneurs do share, although there's a variety of different types of personalities, is that they're all in some ways addicted to failure. And let me just explain or unpack that. aside from the obvious, it's like that rush, like the runner's high. I'm a big athlete and love sports. You know, I use this analogy. Someone says, how much is enough? Financially, I'm not talking about financially, just in life. It's always just a little bit more, 1% more, always 1% more. And I'll tell you what, man, like that is part of what, entrepreneurship and being in business is about, is that, and that's why, I'm industry agnostic. I literally with 6 different industries, because it's just cool to be able to see into the minds of CEOs from all over, what makes this country work, some of it international. And it's cool because everybody there just as good at failing. They'll tell you that. They'll be like, hey, and they're like, I've nailed down how to figure out how to fall off the horse and get back up. And, once you do that a few times and realize you're not made of glass, you get to be decently okay at accepting it. And that's all business is just a series of failures, capped off at the right time. You're like, hey, are you leaving up at the casino? Yep. All right. That was my business experience last 5 years.
Yeah. So fear is the biggest suppressor of success.
It's the one thing that drives us all. And it's the one thing that's the prerequisite. And don't be mistaken. I think a lot of people will say that they've come to grips with fear. You can't judge it because it's a personal thing, but I've got great mentors who would tell you that they're not good at fear. Those are the ones that are always the best at it, failing and fear. And they just appreciate it as part of life. And that's all, risk and return is appreciating, measuring where you are on that. How am I, and you probably read it, Fail Often, Fail Fast. And it's a good book to check out, but no matter where you are, it doesn't, business or not, it's life, get into it, mess it up, try to learn from it and move on. Jay-Z asked, man, dust your shoulders off. Like that's, I'll work it in there,
Yeah. So just so nobody gets the wrong idea, I just started reading again 11/2023. So I'm on book number 4 right now. So let's all calm down.
Just wanted to set the record straight on that. Love it.
That was a number 4 for anybody not watching.
Nice. Yeah, man. So that's I look at waking up that's the barometer. My guy Mike, he's my spiritual director, has been that way for 3 years in this role. He always says at night when you sit down, ask yourself, did I do a good day? Did I have a good day? Did I impact some people in a good way? Every day you're able to say that and wake up the next morning, it's just a little bit lighter. Despite the physical and graying nature of my face, I would say I'm getting younger. I would say that life is getting easier and I'm enjoying more of it. And it's not that life changed. It's never that the macro changed or the environment's changing. It's an inside thing.
Do you actually wake up and prep yourself? Like you ask yourself, is today going to be a good day?
Bro, I'm going to just put my money where my mouth is.
I'm just asking because I've never actually done that.
So I'm going to tell you, this is what I do every day. So
I hope you turn on Rocky and you just get up and start puffing your fist.
No, but I am going to tell you this. So this is an app.
Okay.
All right. So, but the number that you care about is I don't know if it came in clear, but anyway, 662.
Okay.
All right. That's the number of days, fill in the blank, that you did this consistently. It doesn't matter what it is. Wow. Yes, every morning for 662 straight mornings, I've done this thing for 15 minutes every day. Wow. And you think about that and say, do you practice what you preach? The first 150 days, I halfway did it. The next 150 days, I did it because I wanted to get to 300. Since then, it's habit. Legit. And everybody says, man, how did you get there? Started today, and then tomorrow happens, then the next day. But yes, it's 100%, roundabout answer to your question. Do I do that every day? 100%, man. I wake up and think, and there are days that are hard. The last month, if I'm being honest now, have been a hard month for me. Just work and life and all of it. But I think about that, and I think the cool thing about this season is that there is a flow on the way. The ebb is just harder than it's been, but the flow is on its way. And as soon as it gets here, I'm going to just remember how hard that ebb was and going to appreciate the flow more.
Yeah.
So yes, I think in order for me to be able to be sincere with the people I'm with, I have to be able to say that honestly. And I do.
Yeah, I don't. It's so interesting because I hear really, really smart people talk about practices like that, and that, like, it doesn't, like, I just wake up and I just go, like, it's so fascinating to me, and I'm wondering if I need to do maybe more of that to be more in tune with. But like most of the time, I have good days, even if they're shit. Like, it doesn't, But I also like I feel like the construction world, when you go through I don't know if you've ever experienced the construction world, but it can be pretty brutal. And I've talked about this before. Like, I've been through some projects and like getting screamed at by grown men, right? That happens. And when you go through stuff like that, like everything after that is really not that bad. It's like,
so true.
I'm
I have to say really quickly, this is again going back to the humor concept. If you've ever seen Ted, the
which
fact
one?
that you have to say is not that bad means that they are that bad. I had to. I'm sorry.
Brittany Lynn.
And it's perfect. It was like you just volleyed it up for me. Yeah, man. I think I'm in a season where it's hard, but it doesn't mean that good and hard can exist. Coexist. Of course they can. This is just this part. I mean, I'm 43 years old. This is a season I'll remember when I'm 53. I just know I will. And I don't wake up always thinking yes, but 80% of the time it's yes. When I'm in my flow, 99 out of 100 days are yes. So I think part of it is I've created this like ridiculously consistent rhythm between that 662 day streak and then the physical part. Because everything else is, you talked about, and I want to say this real quick thing on intelligence. I have learned that brilliance is just a lens. People like to look at it as a measurement, whether it's academics or what have you, because it's easy to put a number on. But I watch people who get up and speak and inspire, and they walk by other people. Those people feel, ready to move, or, they get up, much like you just talked about yourself, and they just go. There's a giftedness to that, and there's an intelligence behind that some people can't understand. And that goes back to like coloring in between the lines. Like, good for you. If you know that this works for you, Brandon, and you get up and you go, that might be your routine. Yeah. And that's cool.
Yeah, I just don't want to miss out on things that, like, that's the shitty part about continuous improvement, is there's no end.
Yes.
It's like safety. When we talk about safety at work, I'm like, I get it. We're on this train forever.
Yeah. Yes, it is never. That's why they have that freaking number that just keeps going up, unless you're Daryl at the warehouse and you're just ready to have Michael come in and shoot it all down, put it back to zero.
Catch you on the flippity flip.
Yeah. Duncan Flicka. This is my favorite. Man, this is what we do. This is how we talk out here. And I've shared with Michael so he could be with us.
Oh my God, that's so funny. No, it's just, it's a never ending process. And I hear a lot of people talk about these routines and processes that, someone just challenged me the other day, Scott Heckman, about my emotional vocabulary. Have I ever thought about that? And I was like, and he's like, here, look at this wheel. And I was like, what is this wheel? And it's like this colors, and you start in the middle and work your way out. And now I don't ever use like 7/8 of the words on that thing. And I'm like, okay, well, I gotta, this is something I gotta work on. I love stuff like that, where you find little pockets of just blindness or ignorance, right? And you just gotta chip away at them.
You know what? I'll share. This has been on my heart probably since the concussion. It was pretty decently serious. I downplay it, but it was like, I had some people scared. And ICU is not an easy place to be for 3 days. But I left thinking about these words, and I've only been thinking about these words since. Don't be offended. I don't know why, like being in the hospital and then over Christmas, like and I'm a spiritual person, and I'm very into that part of my life. So this is born a little bit out of that, but I always put in, love is not offended. Love does not take offense, however you want to say it. But when you say that like that, it's amazing how it changes how you see other people. When they're hurting and struggling and when they're having hard days and it's constant, it's easy to get pulled into it. Your EQ gets shifted. You talk about emotional intelligence. You talk about this wheel. But when you take on just those words, love does not take offense. And love, you could plug in for, being a great friend, being a great spouse, whatever. But when you say it doesn't take offense and you stop personalizing what's not yours to own, someone else's stuff, man, it opens up a whole world. And I'll tell you, like, it's made me a better father in the last 2 months, just thinking about those words. A better husband, better friend, better boss. And I think how much time we waste, you talk about not missing anything, how much time we waste thinking about someone that many can see the tangential part of my brain working in overdrive right now. Someone once told me we spend our 20s and 30s trying so hard to be what people expect and think of us to be. We try so hard. Then we spend our 40s and 50s just trying so hard to not care about what those people think about us and how we are. And then we turn 60 years old and it's like a freaking eureka. And you're like, holy crap, no one was thinking about me at all. And you're like, all that time wasted. So I think about the do not be offended. It's just perfectly ensconced in that thought process. If you just pretend like you're not, it's not all about you. You could be more about others. And that makes life fun. And it makes the day when you start, even if I start at my way, you start at yours, full. And that's a man, I hope
that's a good one.
It's cool because it's real. Like all the things we're talking about right now, like take it or leave it. Try it out,
Yeah. I don't think love is not offended. I don't think I've ever heard that.
And like I said, in your
Dude,
mind.
sounds like, it's going to be a crude joke, but sounds like you need a couple, you need a couple concussions a couple times a year and come out with bangers.
Don't tell that to my wife, because then she'll come in and she'll explain all of these crazy things that have happened. And she'll like, yeah, he did this here and we were here. I've known my wife for 27 years. So we are on a journey together. But yeah, man, it's like I said this to you about, the same thing about like fear and failure. Like pain quiets you too. I always say, God's funny. Some people can hear the still small whisper, the voice. Other people need the iron prod. Man, I came out of the womb with a freaking iron prod sticking on my backside. And ever since there, I can't hear anything. No still small voices, iron prods. And that's okay. Like, this is the way I work. So if it's a concussion, I'm all right.
Yeah, that's really good. I
love how this conversation has been just all over, by the way. Like I had no clue what to anticipate, but I knew just from our back and forths that it was going to be fun to talk.
Yeah, I none of my questions are going to get covered, which I am 100% down with, because normally I don't get to do that. Maybe
you want to run them down? Because I'm happy to answer them.
Hold on, let me find some ones that are worthwhile to this conversation now. Maybe 0. Nope, that sucks.
We took it in a very unconventional direction.
No, I love it because, one, I like having conversations like this because they're, I don't know, that. So another selfish reason I started this, like part of it was customers, employees. I don't like social mixers. I don't like going to events. So this is my form of that, to stay out there while not having to leave this wonderful room that I love so much. So that was a little bit selfish on one hand. And the other hand was, I get an hour to read a book.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I get to read a book twice a week this week, with people I've met before, never met before, and talk about things that I'm going to learn. And then I have the transcript for life, and I just take it.
That's a cool thing to say, then I like that.
Turn it into whatever I need.
Yeah, it's funny. I keep thinking, actually, I only just thought about it now. How are you going to use this conversation? But I believe wholeheartedly, if there was a small morsel, there's a whole string of conversation. even if it's just you that gets to keep it, we got this exchange. But I also, one of my favorite sayings is what blesses one blesses all. So I'm sitting here on this side, my daughters were like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going to jump on a podcast. They're like, what are you going to talk about? I'm like, I have no idea. They're like, that sounds about right. So I appreciate, like I said, I appreciate that I get the chance to do this with you.
No, I didn't know what I was really going to do or getting into, but I'll tell you what, 2025 I did a couple things differently this year. Like when you started out, everybody tells you like, don't go on a podcast that just started. Like it's the worst experience. So I try to make it as the best it possibly can. But in 25, all the sales DMs I get, I've been telling people, sure, come sell in an hour. It's to come sell for an hour, right? Don't just sell to me, sell to the 30 people who listen to my podcast.
It's funny. 29 of those people are probably going to check out after the first 16 seconds. There'll be that one person that'll say, he talked about a lot of things. They discussed a lot of things. And for a conversation that's supposed to be about business, they didn't talk a lot about business. Why is that? And I'll tell you what, because people, and you know this as much as I do, they're not purchasing the product. They're purchasing the person, always. And if they're trying to, at least for me, man, I say this to everybody that's a new partner. We've never marketed. I've never paid for advertising.
Dang.
Ever. And I'm grateful for that because it means that the referral, which is constantly bringing new, that's what they're referring. Goes back to my epitome, right? Like when I leave something, someone said, hey, 2R did something here and it's there, and I think like, what else is there to want if you're a business other than to be able to say, while you were here, we became better. And, while I was on this call or while I was on this podcast, we got a chance to traverse a lot of subject matter and none of it needed to be selling anything, Brandon. It was just cool. It's just cool to get on a conversation with someone that you've never met and then have an honest conversation with no expectation other than just to have a cool conversation. So I get to go to bed and say that,
Yeah, it doesn't happen a lot. And this is going to sound, I'm just going to say it. I don't mean this the way it sounds.
Just say it.
At our level, it's hard to have that.
Sure. I understand what you mean. And it's not a bad thing to say because I think when you're here, they know that the innuendo and, that's implied or could be implied is not what you mean. So I'll just say that to sparse out. No, I think this is part of the season, so I can just be really transparent. Like part of this season is pruning. So I have people and I think to myself, is this worth, like the people with whom I'm working now, they have to be good people. They can't just want money. They can't just want growth. Like you've got to be, and it's not for me to tell you you're bad human or good, but the way we interact, if it's not like this, not that friction doesn't happen but if we're not having like a just genuinely good exchange, it's not for you. And I'll tell you, I had a partner not long ago kind of have a bad day and they sort of ripped into one of my people. And I not so subtly said, hey, refer to our agreement and this is not okay. And it happened once before and now I got to draw a line. And that's not a bad thing. No judgment, but at the end of the day, we get to choose those things, right? And if I'm a leader, but I don't stand up for those things because of dollars, what am I? And that just happened, man. Like it's a hard thing to do. And I told my wife, I'm like, that's a big chunk. She said, it'll be fine. It always is. And I sit here and I think to myself, yeah.
It's really hard in the moment for that stuff. I think when you're reflecting, it's one of those things where I think you can recenter and revalue and retool and then go back into the conversation. I find it really hard, not so much like to defend, like if it's something blatant, right? And someone's yelling at someone, not cool. Like shut that down. But like even the subtle stuff, sometimes I think I'm like, I should have did better, right? I should have said like, that's not cool. The subtle things is what catches me off guard where I'm like, I wish I would have been in the moment more with the core of what we're trying to do here in that exact moment.
It's funny because it's interesting you say that. This one specifically, and there's been a few before, I told my team, hey, just so you know, we've got this time to wind down. I said, we're going to do this well. We always do it well. I said, and by the way, it's not for you to judge that moment. It's not that's not our role. So keep yourself composed. We've had to have this conversation. We were in an airport when it happened. And I got on a flight for 3.5 hours and got back. And I just said, it's important even for the person, that they're going to come back in a month or a year or 5 years, and they're going to not talk about what you said or didn't say in that moment. They're going to talk about what you did or didn't do after the moment. That's what people care about. And I think about how much grace I've needed in my life, bud, like just so much, that I hope people are that way. Now, you can still have a line, and I do, but man, I hope they come back to me in a few years and be like, bro, I don't know how you did it, but thank you,
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, how many times do you hear from like a sales BD perspective, right? It's not, you can screw things up and customers are cool at that. It's really how you react to that and how you perform after it. And it actually brings you more business if you're not perfect all the time.
Exactly right.
Damn, dude. There's some bangers in here.
I hope so, man.
I mean, I thought there were. I don't know if anybody else wrote.
I love it. I was very much in every moment. So I'm hoping it's good that you've got some things that are usable, because I'd love for you to continue to connect and tell stories. I hope that this is just like I hope this isn't the last time. I hope we get to do it again. Next time I'll do my hair, man. Just give me a heads up.
Next time, maybe we'll get to actually some of my questions.
Next time, just have a moderator for us, because we probably need one.
No, it's so funny because it probably took me 10, 12 episodes to get comfortable to get up, because I'm such a scripted person. Like, I'm like, okay, I made a plan, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like cutting people off to get to the next question, like a complete idiot. And then I started like calming down, getting into flow, and then, realizing that the most important thing is the conversation, not my structure. And that's very hard for me. But
it's the manager in you. And I'll tell you this, like, maybe this was the first conversation we had to have to just get, sometimes for me, I like the first conversation, because it is like, you find out you like talking to them, that the next time we'll hit all your questions, I'm like, hey, B, I want to talk about these things, or, let's flirt around this conversation or this concept. But man, I'm always up to have a good chat, always.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that because I'm upset that we didn't, not at all. It's just that, that's my brain not completing tasks, right? That's how it works. Like for me, I'm a scheduling monster. That's what I did for 10 years in the nuclear and fossil world. So it's like, I have to check these things off.
Well, when you play it back, my guess is you're going to have some things to run with.
Oh.
I think you'll be good. And again, that's something for you. Then you wake up tomorrow and you'll say, I'm going to maybe try this every other chat, feel out the person with whom you're chatting, and say, I'm going to go a little off script, but this conversation didn't have what I like. It didn't have pretense. It just, whatever you got was, I think it's good.
No, I think it was, I think it was amazing. Like I said, I don't get to have these conversations. You don't get to have these conversations as a human being all the time, period. Doesn't really matter where you're at. So do you want to, where can people find you? I mean, if people want to get to know you and find what you guys are about, where do they go?
It's super easy. I mean, my website, tourconsultinggroup.com, is a good place. And that's always updated. I just did a cool video, like an animated picture that talks about how to build models and how to, how we translate financial complexities into simplicities. So you can look at the website, but you can always just call. Like, I eventually I hand you off to my assistant, because she's just the scheduler. So I'm terrible with it. But yeah, I mean, reaching out to call. I like referrals like that. I like having people tell me, you got to connect with this person. And all of the growth in the last 3 years has been predicated on that.
Well, that's how we're here, because Nicole said, hey, you guys got to have a conversation.
She did. And it's funny because I just had dinner with her and her husband the other
Zach,
night.
yeah, he's amazing.
Just the two of them. And I was like, man. So yeah, I would say that's how you can get a hold of me, and, check things out. Like, there's videos that we do. I'm on Insta, the same thing, 2R Consulting. Like, you can find out the videos tell the story. So, I mean, You'll see a lot about what we are, and it's very, very transparent.
Yeah, you're pretty active on LinkedIn too. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation I'd love to have with you, because I think executives are missing the boat on personal branding that leads into your business. And really, people want to know who they're potentially going to work for or with. And I get a lot of weird looks with that conversation.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm going to do a shameless plug for my marketing and branding team, because I'm not good at any of that.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Settlers Design Co. Alicia Settle, is phenomenal. Anna Brock, they're phenomenal. And when I first got into this, they branded me. And then I went a year later and tried to check out someone else. And within 6 months, maybe less, knew, hey, this is about relationship and partnership and connection with these just solid people, and went back and have not gone it. So anything that looks like remarkably finished is not me. Anything that looks like, they just come sometimes with video cameras and they'll say, okay, go.
Yeah.
And then they'll say, Brandon, please take pictures, or while you're walking, or video, or, it's been so cool because it's just organic. But you just have to sit down with them to really get like, how weird is he? Yeah. And I'd be like, yes, he's that weird. But anyway, they're phenomenal. So anything that looks good on Insta or LinkedIn isn't my giftedness, it's theirs.
No, I know, but you have to be comfortable with even going down that road, and a lot of people aren't.
That's true. And I think at the end of the day, going back to like the not fitting in the lines, at some point, people are going to buy into you. They buy into what you're about. And the great thing about that is they find out really quickly if you're not about that, right? So I keep saying one of the cool things, the one thing I will say about our business that I'm grateful for, and our team is incredible and so smart. They'll tell you we've had almost 100% of our partners renew contracts. So, we go in there to fix a specific problem, and we just grow within that organization.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so, and I feel very fortunate, I dress like I'm, kind of in college still and sort of not figured it out. Maybe, coding in the back room somewhere, but I get to work with some really great guys and girls, and it's awesome.
Do you sell jeans at Hollister? Are you out front?
I sell jeans at Hollister. Although I will tell you this, man, you're uncovering a lot of stuff that I feel like if I didn't share, I wouldn't be honest. When I started my master's in English, I want to fight myself for saying this on air. I got recruited while shopping at an Abercrombie and managed. I know. I'm like, at the corner of my mouth, I'm like, should I say this?
I see it. I
was 23 years old, and I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I wasn't even thinking about this sweatshirt. But my point is, there is a part of me like you that is very much into structure, folding clothes. Like I walk around my house and will move a chair just a little bit so that it's angled. And my wife's a therapist. She's like, you know what trace you're exhibiting, right? And I'm like, whatever. Don't put me in a bubble, babe.
Nobody puts baby in the corner.
That's right. Nobody puts it in the corner. We got a lot of movie references in this one podcast, man.
We dropped some bangers on here. Yeah. I mean, I love it. I love that you're stepping outside the box online. I thought this was, the other reason I love this format is you can't hide for an hour. So whoever you get is who you get, which is fine, whatever that looks like. But you can do that pretty easily in, I think, 20 minutes or 15 minutes. You can especially if there's a prequel, right? So you can really hone in on that. But that's another reason I don't like doing prequels, because I just want the person and whatever that is.
That's what you got. And I appreciate it, Brandon. I appreciate you being excited about it. That sets the stage. But I had a blast. Happy to do it again.
109 minutes. How do you feel about that? Or sorry, 1 hour.
109 minutes. I would feel good on an hour and 9 minutes. It went fast.
Okay.
I'll say that. But I'm interested to see what bangers you pulled out. I'm interested in that.
I will pull out the best one I feel, and that'll be my LinkedIn post for that Tuesday when it drops. I don't know when this is going to drop, but yeah, that's one of my favorite parts, is going through and finding that really, like, the one from today earlier was a reference of selling IT and it being like toilet paper. It was hilarious.
Oh, nice. can only run with that. Where I can just I'm just thinking through all the different applications of that
and how dirty their bathroom is.
It's the basis for so many different tentacles. You know what I mean? Just go, 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 go.
Yes. So we probably won't have any of those, but we have some good ones in here. So thank you for coming on. Hour and 10 minutes. It took that much of your time. If you want to find Brandon Rogers, LinkedIn, 2R Consulting, all the things, I think it pretty much laid it out of what you guys are about and how easy it is to work with you. So super pumped. Once again, thank you for coming on, and thank you everybody for listening.
Thanks for having me.